Hi, I'm Laura Gassner Otting, and I am the author of the upcoming Wonderhell: Why Success Doesn't Feel Like It Should and What to Do About It. And the best advice I ever received was, you're just not that important.
You're just not that important.
Yes.
Wow, that I heard that in a lot of dates, but when did you get that, Laura? That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, I sat down with a woman who had just sold a pretty huge company. And I was like, I got all these problems. Everything's hard. It's really tough. And she's like, Laura, I don't understand. You're running a successful business. You're in a happy marriage. You got healthy kids. What's the problem? And I said, I yell at my kids too much. And so she said, all right, tell me about your day. So I told her all about how, I get up in the morning and I take my kids to school and then I do all this work for my clients. And then later I pick them up and I bring my phone, which means that I can be at the park and with my kids and I can be everywhere all at once with my clients and they don't even know I'm gone. And she looked at me and she was like, well, what would happen if you didn't? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, what if you just put your phone in the trunk for an hour and took your kids out for ice cream? Or what would happen if someone else picked your kids up from school every once in a while? And I was like, no, I have to do all the things. And she was like, no, you're just not that important. And here's the thing about that advice. What she meant was, you're not that important for all the things all the time, but you are that important for some of the things in those really precious moments. So, if she said, Laura, if you are running a business where you can't put your phone in the trunk for an hour and be away from the office, you're either a micromanager or nobody cares about what you're doing as much as you do. And if you can't like have some downtime with your kids to just like enjoy and just relax, like you're not actually bonding with them. Like they know you're not there. So she's like, you're just not that important. Figure out where you are that important and double down there.
Ooh, I love that advice. I had no idea where you were going there, but I really do love that. I mean, that used to be, I remember early on, I'm aging myself here, but I had a BlackBerry. And the whole promise was that then, if it was urgent, only if it was urgent, would people interrupt us. But it turned into, well, I'm going to check my email. I'm going to catch up on this. I'm going to do this. So instead, now I had this electronic leash that eventually my ex wife actually named her BB. She divorced me because that was my mistress. I
Yes.
loved my Blackberry more than I loved her. And then thought, oh, I'm not that important. Well, I wasn't that important to her, and I might argue, right? She clearly wasn't that important to me. So, like, when she said that, I mean, did it immediately flip your behavior, or what? Like, what changed? Did like you look up and the kid was like breaking his leg, or what?
No, it's funny. She said, what if you took your kids out for ice cream? And I was like, no, sugar is terrible for kids. And she's like, what if you just put them in front of the TV for an hour and let them just watch Sesame Street while you did some work? And I was like, no, TV is terrible. Meanwhile, I find out later that like her daughter was the head of children's programming at Sesame Street or something like that. So like, oh, okay. But so the next day I picked my kids up from school and I told my staff, I was like, hey, I'm going to be, off the grid for an hour. Put the phone in the trunk, took my kids for ice cream. And we had so much fun. And I came back and I picked up, and it was, again, dating myself. It was my trio. It was my
Yes.
palm trio. And there were a bunch of messages, but none of them were that important. And here's what that led to. It led to me going into clients, and when they would call us back and they'd say, yes, we want you, like we love your pitch, we want to hire you, I would no longer say, great, we'll get you a contract by this afternoon. Instead I would say, we'll get you a contract tomorrow, or we'll get you a contract by the end of the week. And they were like, okay, that's fine. And what I realized is that we all put these deadlines on ourselves, and we speed up and we keep making the wheel go faster and faster. But a lot of times, the doors from hell are locked from the inside, right? So a lot of times we're the ones who are doing it. The other thing that it did is it made me realize, when I was racing to pick up my kids from school one day, and the head of the PTA was coming out and she was like, Laura, we just lost the chairman of the bake sale. Would you do it for us? Instead, I could just be like, no. In fact, I can't, because here's what would happen. I would say yes, and I would be like, okay, that's going to check the quality time with kids box. I'm going to do the bake sale. And then, like, I get really busy with work. I forget all about the bake sale. It'll be the night before, and then I'm like screaming at my kids, like, we got to bake banana bread, and we got to bake cupcakes, and we need to make the chips. And oh my God, Joey's allergic to peanuts, and right, all the different things. And I wouldn't be spending any quality time with my kids, right? I would be doing a quality thing for their school. So now instead, when I'm like, okay, are you asking me because I am the most important person for the job? or am I just the next proximate heartbeat? Like, you would have asked any parent that you ran into on the way, any father, any mother, any caregiver, right? Like, who were you going to ask? So now I say no, but let me help you find the person who can, right? I can like take on the job that's the right job. It's easier for me. I have a better network than I have baking skills. So I will be better for the school. I'll be better for my kids. I'll be better for that PTA chair if I take the job that's the right job where I am that important as opposed to all the rest.
A better network than baking skills. That needs to be your next book, Laura.
Yes.
That's really good, right? So that's so funny. That's so funny. Well, that leads us into talking about your book, Wonderhell, which is fantastic. I'm sad I don't have a physical copy. I
Oh, I
read
do.
it.
I got them. I got them
Oh,
2 days ago. I just got them.
no. Oh,
Isn't
wow.
that
I
pretty? Oh,
won't.
and
Yeah.
because Limitless is yellow, right?
Yes, you still
So
got some yellow though.
here's the fun little Easter egg.
Of course.
It's
Of
yellow.
course. Yeah, so naked, you match your book. That I mean the book being naked, not
Look
you.
naked.
Right?
Yeah,
That's
I'm
pretty
not
good.
yellow.
Like
I'm kind of like a pale, like pasty pink. Yeah, that's that. Nobody wants to buy a pale pasty
no,
pink
but your
book.
color no, but right, but that's your color though. You have a beautiful suit in
Yes.
that color that just jams off the screen. I mean, so just so you know, I'm colorblind, and I think you know this, right? Like this is as close to limitless yellow as I got, and you're probably going to say, "Dude, that's green," right? But it's as close as I get, Laura. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, well, I decided I wear like bright green. I'm like trying to
Yeah,
get into my color. When I first started speaking, all of the video of me speaking in the beginning is I'm wearing gray, I'm wearing black. I'm like trying to hide. I'm like I'm center stage, but I hate speaking, so I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna pretend I'm not here. And now our mutual friend Aaron King was like, Laura, you always post about these celebrities in their, limitless yellow. You gotta like you got to wear some limitless yellow. And I was like, I don't own any yellow. I don't own any yellow at all. And she was like, you got to do it. So I put on this head to toe yellow suit and I strode out in front of 5,000 people at this event in Dallas. And it's an event, they sell caffeine patches that you put on your arm. So this is like 5,000 caffeinated people in the Gaylord Center in Dallas. And here's what I learned. You can't play small when you're wearing head to toe yellow in front of 5,000 caffeinated people. And it actually helped me find a different version of myself on stage that I didn't actually know existed, and it's become much more fun since then.
yeah. Well, you actually you talk about in the book, right? The difference between Laura Gassner Otting and LGO, right? Which is so well, it's so interesting, right? Because I mean, don't take this the wrong way. I don't know LGO,
Yeah.
right? I just know my friend Laura. Though I read your books and I love your work, right? But I mean, really, like I have not had the joy yet of seeing you on stage, but I totally get it. Like it totally makes sense how that flips. And yet, and yet, you talk in the book about that imposter syndrome that sometimes creeps in, right? And you say our goal is to stand on the edge of our incompetence. So explain that in your limitless yellow way, how that helps us kind of overcome that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, so here's like so when Limitless came out, it debuted #2 Washington Post bestseller right behind Michelle Obama, the whole 9 yards, and I was like, "What? Like, what?" I had no idea. Like, did not have a mailing list. It's not even like I had a small one. Like, I literally didn't have a mailing list. Like
I
it
remember.
yeah, like I mean, we talked about this on that great walk on the beach in Florida, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I spent 9 months basically trying to like backfill foundation under the house I suddenly found myself living in. So like, great, amazing, terrific, and also and wonderful, and also, well, if I could do that, what else could I do? What more could there be? Like, what else is inside of me? Not in this like bigger, better, faster, I have to crush it kind of way, but like if I was capable of that and I didn't know it, what else, what other potential do I have inside? And suddenly I felt the burden of this potential settling itself down on my shoulders. And then it became stress inducing, anxiety provoking, identity questioning. Like, who am I now in this new version of myself? So it was wonderful, but it was hell. It was wonder hell. And wonder hell is the space in my psyche where the burden of potential walked in and was like, hey, Laura, what you got for me? What you gonna do with this newfound potential that you didn't even know existed last week, last year, last month? And I didn't know. So I sort of thought about this idea and I was like, what am I going to do with this? I don't really know. I'm just going to keep backfilling the foundation and feel like an imposter and not know what I'm doing. And then COVID hit. And then when we were all at home, I started talking to other people. I was going live, every day on Facebook at 10 a.m. I know you joined some of those. And then I kind of got sick of my own voice. So I was like, I should just talk to other people. So I invited other people to come on with me. And all the conversations seemed to loop around this one question of this moment in their lives where everything changed. And so by the end, I had talked to 100 different Olympic medalists, glass ceiling shatterers, startup unicorns, and everyday people like you and me. And what I realized was that there's no way out of it. You can't get out of Wonderhell because every time you get through one version of it, you see another version of yourself and another version of yourself. And if you're lucky, another version still. There's just Wonderhell after Wonderhell after Wonderhell. So it's not about getting through it. It's about learning how to live in it and enjoy it and embrace it and look forward to it and plan for it and thrive in it. And one of the things that I realized, one of the big themes is that every age, every stage, every one of us constantly has imposter syndrome because every time you achieve something, you walk into a room that has more doors than you ever thought possible and you don't know what's behind them. And so each time you're in that next room, you feel like an imposter. So every single person I talked to, whether they had won the X Games and they were trying to win an Olympic medal, or maybe they had run Smith Barney, but they were, launching a women's investment platform online. If they sold their first tube of lipstick and they wanted to sell like five more, like every single person at every age. And I was like, well, if they've got it, then the rest of us, we got to figure out what to do with it. And what I learned through these stories is that imposter syndrome is actually that voice in your head that goes, oh my God, you haven't done this before. And if we just change the way we listen to that voice and instead hear it say, oh my God, you haven't done this before, then it's an opportunity. It's not a limitation, it's an invitation. So I think imposter syndrome is actually a sign that we're on the right track.
Mm, I like that. That makes me happy to hear, right? And with that, a lot of times those that have imposter syndrome are the most competent, the most gifted, the people that are actually doing stuff. Because morons that are sitting there at the bar all week, they're not thinking, well, I wonder if I deserve to have this here brewski. They're not thinking that,
You
right?
know, I
And
was
yet,
I was literally just talking to Rahav Harfouche about this yesterday morning, and we were talking about how, like, every time somebody says, like, "Well, tell me about your work and tell me who you are," and we feel this need to like dance and to jump around and like, "Let me impress you, let me impress you, let me show you all the trophies and all the awards and all the accolades I have." And really, what we should be doing is saying, like, "Well, what confuses you about my work, or where are you getting lost?" Like, we should ask them because the reason that I personally feel like sometimes I'm not enough is because I'm a student of the work that I do, right? I know that my book is good, but I know it's not the best book out there. I know that I'm good on stage, but I know I'm not the best speaker out there. And why do I know that? Not because I feel like an imposter, not because I don't feel good enough, but because I study all the other people who do really great work because I want to learn from them. So I'm constantly on this asymptotic curve where I'm never going to be perfect because I'm always learning from other people who are ahead of me. So I think the very fact that we have imposter syndrome is a sign that we are sentient humans who want to continue to grow and evolve and learn and get better and get better and get better.
yeah, and because we're not egotistical a-holes either, right? I mean, we might have a
Yeah.
little bit of egotism. You have to have a little bit to get on stage, to have a show, to have a conversation, to write a book. I mean, who am I to write that book? Well, who am I not to write that book, right? I mean, that's the thing there. But with that, we have to lean into who the hell we are here, and I
Yeah.
love that, right? You talk about that in the book. I'm gonna add an two letters after this. You talk about being unapologetic, and I'm going to say being unapologetic AF. Like, take that up, right? And
Yeah.
you tell the story of you and your husband. And before I let you tell that story, I just have to tell you, it's not fair that you're so damn good at writing, because this book is even better than Limitless. And I never thought I'd say that, Laura. You know that I love Limitless. I had you on the show. I read it. I loved it. I spent my own money to buy a copy of a Limitless. And I was like, okay, well, I love you, Laura. You're going to be on my show. We're going to talk about this Wonderhell. But it's not going to be better. I'm wrong. So I just want to say shame on you for being so damn good. So tell me about you and your husband, who is not have a way with words.
You know, what's really unfair is that he kind of does have a way with words also. It's just that he's so good at numbers. It's like it's kind of ridiculous. My husband is that guy who he got a 780 on his English SAT, which is amazing, but he got a 800 on his math SAT. So it's just really annoying, you know? He's really annoying. You know, he's the guy like he finishes the Saturday New York crossword puzzle. He's just so friggin' smart. But he is a savant when it comes to numbers. And the story I tell in the book is how people will say to me, like, wow, Laura, like, how long did you work on that story? And how long did you think about that concept? And I'm like, I don't know. I just thought of it. Like, it just comes to me. Um, and they think I'm magical, right? They're like, that's incredible. That's amazing. You're just magic. And I'm like, no, this just happens to be a thing that I know how to do. Right. I loved stories as a kid. I loved reading. One of my first jobs was in the White House. I was writing speeches for a president, and they'd be like, we need some 15, you know, we need 15 minutes on, you know, environmental policy in an hour, go. So like you'd have to write fast. So I just got trained early to write that way. My husband, on the other hand, is just such a genius with numbers. And so when I ran my executive search firm, I would, you know, from time to time have to do things like run P&L and payroll and like figure out how to, you know, pay people and make sure I got paid and we didn't go bankrupt. And I did the way I tell the story in the book is like, and I would sit there like banging my head against the table, like trying to figure out like the cash flow versus input versus my, you know, will to live. Right. It was like, and it was just horrible. And he would walk in the door and he'd be like, oh, what are you doing? And I'd tell him and he would come over or I would email it to him. And like within 14 seconds and 3 keystrokes, he'd be like, here you go. It's like all wrapped up in a bow. Like, here's your perfect little like function, array function thing. And I was like, my what? It's like, he might as well have levitated me off my chair, you know, because it's magical. But I think what we do a lot of times is that there are things that are so natural to you, right? Like you are so good at building relationships with people and getting to know them and create like you could look at my sales stuff and be like, that sucks, do this, here you go. And I'd be like, what? Like, how do you do that? And but if I complimented you on it, the first thing you would say is, oh, that's nothing. But I think we have to stop saying, "Oh, that's nothing," and, like, actually own it. Be like, "You know what? Thank you for complimenting me on how much better Wonderhell is than Limitless. I worked really hard on Limitless, but it took a lot for me to understand that my next book needed to be a little more robust. It was a sophomore effort. It's, you know, it's a third longer. I tell more stories. When my publisher tried to, like, machete out some of the LGO-ness of it, I'm like, "You can't do that. That's what my readers love about me." Um, and I'm starting to get emails back from some of my early readers who are like, "Oh my god, I feel like you were sitting on the couch next to me having a conversation." But I had to fight for that, and if I was apologetic and I was like, "You know what? You're right. This should read very much like a business book." Like my publisher sent it back to me at one point, and you know the way I talk, right? You hear the way I talk, and I'll say things like, there's a snowstorm coming. You got to run to the store. Milk, butter, cheese, eggs. What are you going to make for dinner? And it came back to me. Obviously, that's not in the book, but it came back to me like, you looked at the news report and saw that they're predicting a snowstorm. It occurred to you that maybe you should go to the store. At the store, you decided to buy milk, butter, cheese, comma, and eggs. This was all in an effort to figure out what to make for dinner. And I was like, no, like that's not how that's not my voice. It's not how I write. So I think each of us have a thing, maybe if we're lucky, multiple things. I got one thing, multiple things that make us who we are. And everybody wants to be special, but nobody wants to be different. And I say, like, be different and be unapologetic about the thing that you do that makes you different, because that's the thing that makes you special.
Yeah. Well, you go even further than that when you say the world is a freak show, so why not celebrate our oddities? And I love that because you know, like I can't grow a beard, so I have to embrace that, right? I'm never going to be the hirsute lumberjack. Instead, I'm gonna be the brightly bespectacled and colorful whatever I am, right? So yeah.
But it works
But
for you. It's amazing for you. It's part of your logo. It's part of who you are. I don't even know if I'd recognize you if you walked up to me at a party without your bright glasses on. I mean, it would be really awkward because I would not recognize you at first, and you'd be like, "It's hello, it's Phil." Yeah,
hey, what's up, Laura? Yeah. No, so with that, right? So how do we do that, right? Like let's break that down a little bit.
yeah.
We say that, right? Celebrate our oddity. So how do we do that when we're going through Wonderhell?
So, I think that the hardest thing is actually just to like start, right? Like I would say, like the hard thing about hard things isn't the hard, it's the doing. And what I have learned in 20 years of doing executive search and interviewing thousands of people about their careers is that there is not a single interesting person who I interviewed who had a direct path. Like all the most interesting people took left turns and right turns and U turns. And that's what makes them interesting. Like the stories we love to tell at cocktail parties are not the stories of our greatest achievements. They're the stories of where we like fell apart and face planted. Everybody wants to hear those stories. People love the journey. So I think figuring out what you love to do and just starting to just live into that space. The internet is an amazing place because you can find all sorts of other people who love that whatever tiny little weird thing is that you like to do. That's so cool. The other day I posted a picture on Facebook of like me wearing my giant reading glasses because I can't see anything, and I was doing needlepoint, and I was like, it's all glamour all the time over here, and a bunch of people were like, oh my god, I love your glasses, needlepoint, how fun. But a handful of people sent me DMs and they were like, I didn't know you needlepointed. I needlepoint. Let me show you what I'm working on. And now I have this like little group of people and we're all texting each other about our weird ass needlepoint habit. So yeah. I think, it's a very simplistic answer, but a lot of times it's just doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, and that's it's so powerful to get the heck out of our own way. And instead of expecting, and you talk about the secret in the book, which actually totally makes me laugh, by the way. Oh, yay. So I thought about this, and therefore it happened to me, as opposed to I thought about this and I took some action, and therefore it started the path in motion, right? That's the secret of the secret is go do something,
Yes.
right?
Well, I think that it's very funny. So I was sort of fascinated by people who just seem to be lucky. Like there just must be people who are just born lucky. Like I wasn't born lucky. I have an older sister who was born lucky. Her name is Karen. And we always say, like, here comes Karen. It's like, oh, there's a hot new restaurant that's opening up. You can't find a reservation for like a year. My sister's like, yeah, we should eat there tonight. I'll just call. She calls and they'll be like, oh, we just had an opening at 7 p.m. Here comes Karen. It's like she just walks through life in this way where things just happen for her. And I'm like, how does that happen? How does she do that? And what I learned in this research is that you don't make your own you're not just lucky, you make your own luck. So she can make her own luck because if she calls enough times, she gets rejected enough times, she knows what to say to make it work. She knows how to talk to the people at the front desk to get the upgrade to first class. She knows how to she just always gets the corner suite because she's done it enough times and she's observed and she's looked that she knows how to work the system. So she's in the doing. And I think, we can make ourselves lucky by number one, being optimistic. So she doesn't walk up going, well, I know you don't have any tables, and you probably can't do this for me, but right. She just goes in assuming things are going to work out well. If she assumes that she's going to work out well, she'll actually make the phone call. Like I assume things won't work out well. So I'm like, oh, they're booked for 3 years on the internet. I won't even call. So of course I'm not going to get a reservation, but she tries. You can also say yes to things. So maybe she doesn't get into that restaurant, but she goes to some other restaurant. And then while she's there, she meets the general manager who happens to be best friends with the general manager of the fancy restaurant, right? So she now has the connections. And so she's put herself sort of in the deal flow. So when she says, oh, I really wanted to try that, but we can't, when friend number one gets a text from friend number two, we got a cancellation tonight. He walks over to the table. Hey, you can go. Right. So people aren't lucky. They make their own luck by doing it. And then you're talking about the secret behind the secret. We think oh, I've just manifested my perfect spouse, or I've manifested a trip to Japan, or I've manifested the promotion. It's like, no, you haven't. Your brain gets something like 7 million bits of data every single second, but it can only process 50. So when you write your wish on your vision board and you're in your glittery font and your cursive, you're not making it happen. You're just in telling your brain to filter through all that information and pick these specific bits. So it's not like you manifested the bus going by with the sale on the trip to Japan. You've just told your brain to notice that. It's not that you've manifested your perfect spouse. You've just told your brain that when you're in your Starbucks line and you look up from your phone for a second, to not think about the email you need to send, but to notice the really cute person right in front of you, right? So it's we can train our brains to see more opportunity, and when the brain sees more opportunities, then it says yes to more opportunities, and then we can create this luck that we think is just this magical, mystical thing that people just manifest out of thin air.
Oh, so I can't just be lucky. All right, I got it. So that's disappointing.
I
Sorry,
mean,
Laura.
you can be luckier, right? So if you're
There
someone
you
who
go.
has made their own luck, you can take advantage of more and more and more of it, right? And by taking advantage of it as yourself, as your full freak show self, you actually will do better. Like I tell a story in the book about Lydia Finette, who runs all of the nonprofit auctions for Christie's auction house. And when she first started doing it, she would walk in all like tuxedoed and staid and serious, like all the like old British dudes that were doing it. And she's not an old British dude. And so she tried to do those auctions and she was fine. She did well. But one day when she was super pregnant, she made this kind of, self depreciating joke and people laughed. And she was like, oh, I can be funny. That worked. That got people engaged. Cool. So then she did it again and again and again. And now she just goes out on stage as the full her. And she's even more successful. So you were lucky and you can be luckier. If she was successful, she can be more successful.
Love that. That's encouraging. So with that, as we kind of take this home, first I have to say the book is gorgeous. Forget about the content. But as you look at it, the cover is beautiful. You've got some amazing graphics in there. So tell me a little bit about the graphics in there, Laura. How those kind of came about and what the idea is behind that, because I absolutely love that. And I want to let you talk about it because I know you've
Sure.
got more to say than me.
So I mentioned Rahaf Harfouche earlier. She's kind of like my work wife. Rahaf and we talk every Tuesday morning. And over the course of like 3 months, I was talking about this idea and I was like talking about the people I interviewed and the themes that were coming out about embracing our ambition and renegotiating our relationship with all the tsunami of emotions that come at us in these moments, and getting ready to do it again and again and again. And she said, Wonderhell's kind of like an amusement park. Like you go in and you're like, it's amazing. It's going to be so much fun. And then the amusement park, they actually kind of suck, right? Like, have you ever been to an amusement park and you're like, this is going to be the best thing ever? And then it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon and you're like sunburned and you're dehydrated and that corn dog in your stomach is threatening to come out on that roller coaster that you don't even want to go on. I thought this was going to be fun. Why isn't this fun? And success is kind of the same way. You're like, I just succeeded. I did this thing. Why is it harder? Like, which I thought it was going to be fun. Why is it not fun? So she said, it's kind of like an amusement park. You've got like Imposter Town and Doubtsville and Burnout City. And she's like, you should make a big map and just be like, you are here. So Wonderhell, you are here. And so there's this whole map that has all the different rides. And so the book is in 3 sections: Imposter Town, Doubtsville, and Burnout City. And then each town, as you know, has 5 rides. So all the different rides representing all the different emotions that you experience as you go through Wonderhell.
Wow. Wow. It's like one of my favorite pinball games, Funhouse, to me. Like, because there's ramps and loop de loops, and sometimes you get multi ball, and you're like,
Yep.
whoa,
Yep.
here we go. So, no, I love it, Laura. Love, love, love it. So with that, we're going to take her home here with one more concept from the book that I
Yes.
love, because it really kind of encapsulates everything I think you're about and everything this book is about, and even everything Limitless about. And that is 2 words: choose yourself.
Oh,
I
yes.
love that you threw that in there. So talk to me about choosing yourself as you're in Wonderhell and how that's going to help you get us through.
Yes. So I spoke to I spoke to an amazing woman who told me an amazing story. And the story went something like she was waiting. She was waiting for her boyfriend to propose. She was waiting for her boyfriend to want to move in together. She's waiting for her boyfriend to want to move to the next step. Her name is Jill Shearer Murray. And Jill kept waiting for Hector to ask. And, finally one day, a real estate agent friend of hers called her up and said, there's an apartment available. She turned to Hector and she says, what do you think? And expecting for him to be like, not yet, not yet, not yet, like he always did. He said, yes. So the next day she shows up at this apartment. The real estate agent is there. She's there. Hector's not there. They reschedule for a couple hours later. She's there. The real estate agent's there. Hector's not there. And after like doing this 2 or 3 times, she's like, you know what? I'm done. I'm done choosing everyone else. I'm done choosing his not yet, and I'm ready for my right now. And so she broke up with Hector. She restarted her entire life, and within 6 months of doing that, met the love of her life, and is married and is happy. And it took her not prioritizing everybody else first and letting go of who she thought she had to be so that she could become who she actually could be.
It's beautiful. That is beautiful.
And I think a lot of us do that, right? I mean, think about how much time you spent, Phil, filling in everyone else's boxes, like trying to be what everybody else wanted you to be until one day you were like, all the boxes are full, but I still feel empty. Maybe I got to figure out what I want.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a great way to leave it with folks because there's so much there that they can use. The book is, again, fantastic. I recommend people get it, right? You go to wonderhell.com. You can get to know more of my friend Laura Gassner Otting and get to know more of the book. Get on the roller coaster, though, friends. If you're listening to this, my big advice from Laura's book is get on the damn roller coaster. Like, do the work, take an action and choose yourself. So, Laura, if you had one thing that you'd like to impart on folks, one more insight maybe for folks to encourage them that Wonderhell is going to be something that they're going to enjoy, maybe not at the time they're going through it, but at the other end, what would that be?
Well, I would just say this. Everything that we read out there is like crush it and hustle harder and lean in, or it's like wash your face and stop apologizing. And at the end of the day, all of that stuff either tells you to hustle harder or to like eat, pray, love, right? Like, what about in the middle where we don't have one of those choices? And the choice that we have pretty much every single day is to be in this liminal space in the middle. And nobody likes the uncertainty of the liminal space. I'm not here, I'm not there. So, what I would say is based on these 100 conversations that I had with people, I think it would probably behoove all of us to stop trying to survive these moments, but learn how to thrive in them so we can actually enjoy the ride.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Friends, learn to enjoy the ride. Get yourself some more Wonderhell. Go to wonderhell.com. Get to know my friend Laura Gassner Otting more and choose yourself. You can do this. Laura, as always, it's a joy to talk to you. Thanks so much for writing a great book, and thanks for spending time with me today.
Thank you so much. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it always is. Thank you, Laura. And thanks everyone for listening, for watching. Now go to Wonderhell. You can do it.